What's up, everybody? I'm Richard.
And I'm Shawn.
And we are speaking the language of bromance. I don't want to say conmance. That makes it sound shifty and shady.
Yeah.
And we're not shifty and shady.
No.
Because we're a bromance.
Yeah, we don't do panels in bathrooms or in like sketchy areas of a con. We don't hold our mics.
We do,
yeah. But that's
only if the money's good.
That's true. And that's because we got kicked out of our one spot, which was not appropriate. We had that spot claimed. No, Richard, we are continuing our panels from the 2021 Big River ComiCon in America's hometown, Hannibal, Missouri.
That was a good time.
Oh, it was a great time. So we talked a little bit.
You know what? As much fun as I had on day one, it was kind of short. You know, I think day one was only like it was like 5 or 6 hours from open to close. No. Yeah, like 6-7 hours from open to close.
Yeah, I think we got there at
kind of short.
We got there at 11ish or so, but then they didn't like open the doors till 3.
Yeah. Day 2, doors opened at 9.
Oof.
And I'm going to tell you, Richard was a hurting boy.
Yeah.
At 9 a.m.
Oof. I was like we talked last time, I definitely paced myself on the drink, so I did not get too drunk, but I had an hour drive back to where I was wanting to stay the night because my Siri was being a little pain in the butt and was trying to take me all over the back roads of Hannibal, Missouri to get me home.
It was giving you a tour, Shawn.
Apparently.
Siri was like, "You've never seen Hannibal, Missouri."
I'm like, I don't want to see Hannibal, Missouri at 2 a.m. I want to be in bed. So I didn't get to bed till like 2:30 and I had to get up at like 6:30. So it was a short night, but we got day 2 and we have the panels that we recorded for day 2. Also, Richard, I know some people might be turning in. It's like, hey, didn't you guys have some kind of raffle? And we did have a raffle. At the end of the episode, before we do Richard's closing thoughts, we will announce the winner of that raffle where we'll give away some comic books, a couple signed books, one from John Davis, who is a big Hannibal local author. Super pumped for that.
I have the basket right in front of me.
Oh yeah, all kinds of cool stuff.
There's toys and there's Star Wars stuff and there's books because people like to read. Good stuff.
Yeah. So I'm excited to see who wins that. But for today's panel, Richard, we had 2 awesome guests again. We had a voice from Star Wars. We had the voice from Gremlins, which this conversation, like after we were done, I was like, I want to get this guy on for a full episode because it was a lot of fun. Yeah, it is 100%. One Mark Dodson.
Yes. I was, I think when it comes to, I mean, let's be honest. When, a comic convention in Hannibal, Missouri is not a comic convention at, say, Chicago or San Diego. Like, it's a smaller affair. Mm-hmm. So obviously, I'm not going to see Robert Downey Jr. sitting, across the way in Hannibal, Missouri. And you know what? That's fine. But I would argue that I think that guests like Mark prove to me that guests like Mark make me feel that an actor's an actor, a voice actor's, like I feel like there isn't, you don't quantify people as like a lesser role or a bigger role. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like we talked with Mark for, I think it was like, half an hour, 45 minutes, something like that. I again, like with Ming, like I could have gone another hour because he's done so much. Like, I mean, obviously claim to fame, Salacious Crumb in Return of the Jedi. And the multitude of voices he did on Gremlins. He did voices on Force Awakens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He talks about that in here. But like, I mean, just the giant breadth of work that a guy like Mark has done, he is 100% a veteran, seasoned voice actor who's done so many cool things. So many things that I would love to do.
Oh, yeah.
Would you not love to do a voice in a video game?
Oh, 100%. And like his story of how he got into it, is not like your typical kind of story too. So I really enjoyed a lot of that.
Yeah, that's kind of how we kick this off, because apparently if you want to be in a Star Wars movie, you need to learn how to build a thing first. And you just kind of sidestep. But you know what? I feel like that kind of, for me, I feel like that kind of sums up the sense of like what we do. It's like, shoot, like by any means necessary, like just get in there and shoot your shot.
Oh yeah.
Like, Mark goes to Los Angeles going like, I want to be in a movie. I want to make a movie. I want to write. I want to, produce. I want to make things, and I'll get there and I'll start at the bottom, and I don't give a shit. Like, I'll do whatever. And he did whatever. And just basically, like, opportunity came up and man shot a shot and he dunked it. And he dunked it.
It's a super impressive story. And like, I definitely, like, you could deep dive into it. But then our last guest on this panel, Richard, was somebody that's drawn a lot of our childhood. And it's, he talks about it, but He-Man, Heathcliff, some Scooby-Doo, and it's one Tom Cook.
Yes. So, I mean, as much as when it comes to Tom, like, obviously, like, I feel like I can't articulate how much, like, I feel like if we were on a camera, I could throw up pictures and be like, you see this? Yeah, he did this. You see this? Yeah, he did this. Like, so I feel like I could never do justice explaining how immense this guy's career is. But I will say one thing, and it probably isn't conveyed during the recording, but at one point, Shawn, I grab your arm and clutch it for dear life, because he's like, oh, and yeah, I worked on this thing, and I grab your arm and I clutch it, and I'm like, oh my God.
I think it caught you on the audio going, he did MC Scat Cat.
He did it. It's MC Scat Cat. Shawn, MC Scat Cat from the Paula Abdul video, Opposites Attract. MC fucking Scat Cat. I thought that man was the coolest motherfucker alive. It was like, okay, so you see those ads for like Joe Camel and stuff like that, and it's like, oh, it's a cartoon camel that smokes. Like, oh, he's edgy, Like, no, that's not edgy. This was an animated, talking, rapping cat
trying to have sex with Paula Abdul.
Oh my God! And I think he did it. I am like 90% sure that happened.
Yeah, that was the question we wanted to ask, but Deb's like, yeah, please don't ask that. But Richard, at the Big River ComiCon 2021, April 23rd and 24th, here are our panels with Mark Dodson and Tom Cook.
Big River City ComiCon, how are we doing tonight? Or today, how are we doing today? First of all, let's give a big round of applause to every single one of these people right here. Woo! Yeah. These costumes are so rad. And I'm in my 30s, so I can say rad, right? It's cool. Yeah. Thank you. I got forgiveness. It's the 501st. That's right. So awesome. You see these guys at every single convention, and every time you walking around, it commands respect. And you wouldn't think it would, because you're like, oh, it's just something from a movie. No, it's not. It's real. It's right in front of you. It's Darth Vader. I don't know if anybody knows that.
Yes, Lord Vader.
Yeah.
Lord Vader.
So the reason that we are here is we're here to introduce an amazing voice talent. You know him as Salacious Crumb. You know him as I can't even. Okay. Anyway, can't even get into it. Anyway, the one, the only, Mark Dodson.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks to the 501st for coming, my little Ewok friend. I love the Ewoks.
So we just wanted to spend a little time just kind of get like deep diving into stuff about you and give people in the audience a chance to ask you questions if they are so inclined, which they should be. The thing that I wanted to touch on that maybe not a lot of people know is apparently the way I understand it, it seems like if you want to get a job at Lucasfilm, or if you want to get a job in a Star Wars movie, the first thing you need to do, if you pour water on yourself. And
now I'm going to multiply.
After that, the first thing you need to do if you want to work in a Star Wars movie, know how to build a bookshelf. One person who worked for it, Harrison Ford. Harrison Ford was a carpenter, and then that's basically how he ended up kind of sidestepping into auditions and getting a gig. The same goes for Mark. So, know how to build a bookshelf. So, your first job at Lucasfilm was?
My first job at Lucasfilm was laborer and then carpenter, helping to build Skywalker Ranch. Which was, so I tell my story.
Yes, please.
So, well, thanks you guys for being here too. Great town, Hannibal. The force is strong in Hannibal. I wanted to get in the film business. I wanted to direct and produce. And I grew up on Hitchcock and those kind of guys, and I wanted to be the next Hitchcock. So I went out to Los Angeles from St. Louis in 1978. I was born and reared in St. Louis. And I was willing to do anything. I was like, I'll take a job and work my way up. You could do that back in those days.
It's that go-get-em attitude.
Yeah.
You know?
So I took a job as they said, well, we need laborers right now at the ranch. And then when something opens up in production, we could bring you over. Because I was in LA at the time, and that was Marin. So I said, all right, I'll go, and I'll do that. And I did. And worked helping to build first the sound studios for Ben Burt. And actually, that was on where ILM already was, Industrial Light and Magic.
Okay.
In San Rafael.
And for people that don't know who Ben Burt is, if anytime you hear the sound of a lightsaber, anytime you hear the breathing of Darth Vader, anytime you hear the sounds of Chewbacca, who apparently died, but that's neither here nor there. But anytime you hear any of those sounds, that all came from the mind and fingers of Ben Burt.
That's right. So I helped build his studio, and then they moved me out to the ranch and made me a carpenter, apprentice carpenter. Started building out there. It got around that I kind of did voices, because joking, I would say things sometimes, and if somebody didn't understand something, I'd be like, what we have here is a failure to communicate. And they're like, well, that's pretty good, Strother Martin. Who else can you do? And I'm like, the walls of my castle are broken. Well, that's pretty good. So I ended up getting the audition in the studio that I built.
Oh, that's
I got called over. And I ended up being Salacious Crumb, a little guy with Jabba that cackles. And that's how it happened. So that's all you got to do. If you want to work for Lucasfilm, you can start out as a carpenter, a laborer, work in the mailroom. I know guys in the mailroom that ended up being huge producers.
So I guess that's the thing. It's like no job is too small, and jobs lead to something. They start out small and they end up getting bigger.
Right. My job led to Jabba.
Exactly. Yeah.
Jabba's sidekick. Jabba's cackling crony, I believe it's called.
So I'd like to hear your tale. So, you start out in St. Louis and you decide to make that jump to Los Angeles and make this journey. Kind of walk me through what that was like. That's a big jump. Midwest, going all the way out to LA. Kind of share that journey a little bit.
I just knew I was going to do it, from a pretty early age. So people have said that, but I'm like, no, it really wasn't. I was 18. What did I have to lose? It really wasn't, and I just went. I loaded up my car. I told my family I was going to leave on August 6th, and you better have a party because I'm going to California. And August 6th, I got up and started packing my car, and they said, what are you doing? I said, I'm going to California. I told you I was leaving this morning. And they're like, well, we didn't think you really would. And I said, I know you didn't even have a party. But they're like, well, wait a few days. I said, no, I'm going now. That's really how it happened. And I drove straight out there. That was the days of CB radios. Yeah.
Like convoy.
And I did it that way in a convoy. 28 hours nonstop on no doze and chewing tobacco and coffee. And got in with the truckers on my CB radio.
What was your, Shawn wants to know what your call sign was. What was your
I was the Mad Hatter.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that was my handle.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so now now that you've gotten, was the dream like, oh, I did voices and now I do the voice, like, is that when you go, okay, now what? Or did one thing immediately roll into the next?
Well, it really kind of did, because after I did, worked on Jedi, yeah, there was a screening with the cast and crew in San Francisco, and of course I was there. And I got to meet the guys that made Salacious Crumb, Tony McVeigh and Chris Waits. And Tony sculpted it.
Yeah.
And Chris, all the rubber. So I got to meet them, we exchanged numbers, and just a few months later I get a call from Chris Waits saying, he says, hey, we're down here in LA and Spielberg just asked for you. And I said, you're so full of it. Why would you do this to me? Like, this is a prank.
Yeah, like, who
I really did. I'm like, yeah, right.
Yeah, because
He
that
goes,
happens
no.
to people in the world.
Yeah, and I'm like, come on, man. I had some choice words, like, you can't do this to me.
Like, oh yeah, and the president's online
Yeah,
too,
right. And he said, no, really, we were just in a production meeting. We're down here working on this film called Gremlins, and the Gremlins look a lot like Salacious. And Steven asked us if we knew who did the voice for Salacious.
Oh.
And we said, yeah, Mark Dodson. And he asked if we knew how to get you. And we said, yeah, he's working for George up at the ranch. He's a carpenter. And he said, well, see if he wants to come down and be the voice for the Gremlins.
Yeah, you're sitting there putting
And I'm
a
like,
hammer.
come on, man, this isn't real.
Yeah, you're putting a hammer to a nail. It's like, oh, hang on, I have to go take this call from Steven Spielberg.
Yeah, I got a call.
Yeah.
But it turned out it was true.
That's
I couldn't believe it. I even told him, I'm like, I can't take time off. It's going to cost me money to go down there. I can't afford this.
Yeah.
I'm pounding nails trying to pay my bills like everybody else.
Sure.
And he starts laughing. He's like, dude, it's a Spielberg movie. You're going to be the lead characters in this thing. I think George will let you go for a week or so, and you could make a lot of money. And I was like, okay. And then it just, one thing after another. He said, do you have an agent? I said, no. He said, you're going to need one immediately to negotiate this. So I called agents in LA, and that was kind of funny. I was told who to call. Special Artists was a fairly new agency. And I said, I got the person on the phone I need to talk to. I said, I need an agent. I want to do voice. I'm a voice actor. And I need an agent. And they said, okay, send us a demo. And I said, well, I don't have a demo, but I need an agent. And she said, well, we don't know if we want to represent you until we've heard you. And so we're going to need a demo. And I said, well, I don't have time to make a demo right now. And she kind of got perturbed and was like, look, we need a demo before we can consider you. I said, well, wait a minute. Here's the thing. I worked on Return of the Jedi. I was a creature in that. And now I've been called to work on a movie called Gremlins. It's a Spielberg movie, and I'm going to be the Gremlins. And she said, how soon can you be here? That's exactly how it happened.
We don't know if we want to represent you.
They don't need a demo anymore.
It's my fault. I just got off the phone with Steven Spielberg.
Yeah, right. And then she was like, is it for real? I was like, this is real, yeah. And so I met with them, and then I had an agent.
Yeah.
And then they started pitching me for other things.
Yeah, that reception is like, is this a prank? Are you a prank?
Yeah, there was another one. Who's pranking? Right. So, and then it just started rolling, and I started getting parts. I would try out for things, and my agent, then eventually I'm like, well, I'm moving to LA.
Yeah.
And then I started working.
So when you were on the phone and you said, I'm a voice actor, is that the first time you ever said it to yourself?
Yeah.
I'm a voice actor.
I'm a voice actor.
I'm a voice actor.
Where did that come from? Yeah, it was. Yeah.
So is there the process when it comes to voice acting? A lot of times, you see a lot of those behind the scenes things where it's like you're standing in a booth, you're talking in a microphone. Maybe maybe you got some footage or something playing around you. Like how was it for you? Like especially like something like Gremlins, where I'm sure like a lot of where do you find the personality for those voices?
Well, I mean, when I look at them.
Yeah.
And they tell me how they sound. I don't know.
Yeah.
I hear a voice when I see them, and I kind of hear it in my head, and then I impersonate what I'm hearing.
Okay.
And try to make it sound like what I'm hearing. But, I mean, like with the Gremlins, yeah, we did that to picture. So something like that. Animation, we don't do it to picture. We do the voice, and then they animate to our voice. But in a live action film, the film it's shot. Those scenes are shot. And then they do a rough cut, a rough edit, a black and white work print that's so black and white it's hard to see sometimes. And they put it on a big screen, and we try to make things fit the mouth movement, and it's just kind of like we'd watch a scene and then be like, what should we do here? Well, the Gremlins, though, was limited, right? Because the mouth only goes like that. So I was like, yum, 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 da, 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 ka, 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 and all that kind of stuff. So that kind of dictated a little bit. And, isn't that what they look like to you guys? Wasn't that what they would sound like?
Well, no, because I look at it and then I hear it and I'm like, well, of course.
Of course that's what they sound like.
Of course that's what they sound like. I think that makes perfect sense. Do you have a preference when it comes to either like animation or film? Like, do you have is one easier than the other? Is one or is it just?
I mean, doing it's called ADR when you do it to picture.
Yeah.
Automated dialogue replacement, and that's the most fun.
Okay.
Well, that's fun because you're getting to watch the movie. You're seeing it.
Yeah.
So no question, ADR is the most fun, I think, for any voice actor. It's challenging too because you got to make it fit, and then after you do the voice, they literally can play it back immediately. They'll sync it up and see if it fits.
Okay.
And then if it doesn't, we'll do it again. Or the sound man that's directing part of it will say, it's close enough. They always use I can slide it. I can slide this over. I can cut that. And they go, okay, well, we like that take. Let's move on. But yeah, that's the most fun because you're watching a movie, right? And it's fun. You're seeing what you're a part of.
So I think with voice acting, it's something that a lot of people probably take for granted how difficult it is. I was wondering if you could share some of the challenges that come from voice acting that some people may not know.
I mean, the challenge as an actor of any kind is auditioning. That's the challenge, and waiting to hear if you got the part. And if it's a part that you really want and you don't get it, you're sad. It's a letdown, sometimes you're like, it'd be fun to get it, but then there's the ones come along that you really, really want. As far as voicing, I mean, nowadays doing video games.
Yeah.
I do a lot of video game work. And that's a real challenge because they want 3 takes on every line. And I've done things where I had like 1,500 lines. So multiply that by 3.
Right, because there's so many choices. What if they do this? What if they do
that?
So you told dialogue.
So you have
trees.
every possibility, which would never be in a movie. You'd never have 1,000 lines in a movie.
Yeah, it's not choose your own adventure.
No, right? But maybe someday they will. That could be cool.
You never know.
But yeah, it's that's a challenge. It wears you out. It wears your voice out. And when you're done at the end of the day, you don't have a voice. Usually I can go about 3 hours of that. And I play a lot of wizards. And, you'll start out, not too big. And then they always go bigger, bigger, bigger. So you're, welcome to the tropics. It's a, be gone.
Yeah.
And then they're like, bigger, be gone. And then, okay, give us one bigger, be gone. Do that for 3 hours, over and over, and you'll feel it.
Like, all right, that was the first line.
You actually can work up a sweat in a booth. I'll tell you what.
Oh, I can see it. I can definitely see it. I was gonna turn it over to the audience for if they had questions. But the one thing that I wanted to ask is, or before I turned it over, is everybody always knocks, or everybody always, you know, there's always this debate on the internet over whether or not Die Hard is a Christmas movie. You know?
Yes, it is.
See. But you know what? Everybody forgets. Gremlins is a Christmas movie.
Gremlins is a Christmas movie.
So
I've seen people say it's not. How can you know what their excuse was? Well, it could have taken place at any time. Really? But it took place at Christmas.
They're ripping Santa Claus apart.
Oh, I know. I don't know. But no, Gremlins is a Christmas movie.
100%. So next Christmas, that's what you put in the DVD player. That's what you pull up on the streaming service.
That's right.
So, anyway, like I said, this is the point. I didn't know if anybody did have any questions for Mark, which you should, because he's amazing. You guys, you can stand up right here in the middle. I will hand you the microphone, and off you go. If anybody does anybody have any questions for Mark? No? Anybody?
Oh, are you shy? I don't bite. My character's good. I worked with Howie. Yeah.
Really?
Well, yeah, on Gremlins and Gremlins 2. We worked together, and I met Howie. And he's a germaphobe.
Yeah.
Big time. Well, I'd never heard of that in 1983. I don't know if anybody had. And when they introduced us, I'm a Missouri boy. We're taught to shake hands, firm, look in the eye.
Yeah.
And I went to do that, and he went like this. And I was like, and he goes, bump. And I went, so this is true. So, yeah, Howie Mandel. So we worked for a little while, and Joe Dante was the director. And we worked for a little while together, and then they said, okay, take 15, take a break. Everybody come back in 15.
Yeah.
So I let Howie get out of the studio first. And when he got out of the studio, I said to Joe, I was like, what's with him? And he's like, what? And I said, he wouldn't even shake my hand. Like he's too good or what? He's like, oh, no. He said, no. He's a germaphobe. And I'm like, what? He said, he's a germaphobe. He won't touch anybody. It's nothing personal. He bumps fists instead of shaking because he's afraid of germs. I think Howie Mandel started that.
Probably.
Back in 1983.
Yeah.
Nobody did that. Yeah. And then I was like, oh, I'm sorry. He's like, no, Mark, it's cool. They're like, it's cool. They thought it was funny, too. So after that, I was the rest of the session and we worked for a week together. We had a great time. He was super nice.
That's awesome.
But he didn't want to touch anybody. He didn't want to have me touching him.
When it comes to doing an ADR film, like, is there a lot of interaction, like, with the rest of the cast?
Yes.
Like, they come in and...
Yes.
Because a lot of times, something gets, like, a line gets flubbed or, like, the sound isn't great on, so, like, the cast will come in and do ADR on their own stuff.
That's correct.
Yeah.
So the guys that you see, they come in and redo their lines quite often. A lot of lines get redone.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's because of sound problems on the set, Sometimes it's just because they think, well, we can get a better take out of them. The look is there. We got the shot. We got everything, but we can get them to say it a little better, and they redo their lines to picture, and they have to make it fit.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's awesome. Sean.
But, yeah, there is a lot of interaction. You know what there is a lot of? Like on Force Awakens. There was 15. I worked on Force Awakens. And there was 15 of us voice actors in that studio. It's a huge studio. It's huge. It's like a movie theater with a big screen. A movie theater size screen. There was 15 of us. So we cheer each other on. And there'll be a scene like a stormtrooper with a line who wants to try it. And I'll be like, and we'll literally get in line.
Yeah.
There's the mic.
Coach.
Next. And then you get back up there, and we cheer each other.
Oh, that's
It's really
awesome.
cool. Like, after somebody does it, we'll be like, oh, that was great. Let me try, And then we try to one-up each other, and we laugh and have a lot of fun. The voiceover world is a very fun community. Anybody in the industry will tell you, voice actors, we don't really feel like we compete. It doesn't matter what we look like. we just do our thing.
Yeah.
Just, you know, and you do your thing, he does his, and they're going to choose whoever. And you might get it this week, and I might get it next week.
Yeah.
You know, it's really like that. For whatever reason, it's real. It's not fake. I don't know. It's just a lot of crazy people talking crazy and having fun and getting paid.
Is most of the work you did was it at Skywalker Sound? Or?
No, I only did Jedi at Skywalker Sound. We did Gremlins. We did at Warner Brothers. We did Gremlins 2 at, or no, other way. We did Gremlins at Paramount, and Gremlins 2 we did at Warner Brothers.
Okay.
And that was fun driving on the Warner Brothers backlot because I had to drive through Hazard County. Y'all remember Hazard County and the Dukes of Hazzard. Literally, you drive through Hazard County to get to the...
Shawn wants to start singing the theme so bad.
Just a good old boy.
See?
Never mean to beats all you never saw. In trouble for the loss of the day they were born. Straightening the curves, flattening the hill. Someday the mountain might get them, but the law never will.
And you sang it as you drove through.
I did sing it as I was driving.
I
did, of course.
knew that. Because so not only do we get to hear your voices in movies, but if anybody ever got to go visit Scott, the ranch, I'm sure there's probably stuff there that you still built, that you built. It's probably
the main house. I built the main house. Which
really?
Is 50,000 square, well, with a bunch of people.
Well, I didn't think it was just you by yourself. Like, I got this, guys.
I built the main house. No, a whole bunch of people built the main
Everybody
house.
stand
100
back.
people were working constantly for a couple of years. I'm not kidding. It's a 50,000 square foot Victorian.
Yeah.
And done all like it would have been done in the 1800s, where a 2x4 was a true 2x4.
Oh, wow.
As y'all know, that's not like that anymore. But all the timbers were true to, an 8x8 was an 8x8.
Yeah.
And it was amazing. So that still stands. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
So anybody that ever gets a chance to visit the main house, after you hang up the phone from Steven Spielberg,
when you
you're like, hey, I met the guy that put this, that helped put this house up single-handedly.
All by myself.
It's just him and a
me and a bunch of Ewoks.
Yeah.
So it sounds like with you kind of took a good job, started getting into it, you got your opportunity. You've probably seen a lot of people in the voice acting industry start coming up. I'm sure a lot of people here want to know, what do I need to do to get into voice acting? What's some things that you've seen throughout your history that can help lead them into the voice acting career?
Yeah, I mean, really, it's got to be a passion because, like I said, it's tough auditioning and not getting parts. So it's got to be a passion. Do what you do best with your voice. Don't try to be everything. And you got to make a demo, and you got to get Eventually, I made a demo, but you have to do a demo of your best stuff that you can do. And if you really want to know, you can go online nowadays and Google, how do I become a voice? As far as, nowadays they want 1 minute and 20 seconds of characters, all set as up. 1 minute and 20 seconds of a narration. 1 minute and 20 seconds of trailer style. These are all different styles. Commercial style, just yourself. But it used to be you do like a 3.5, 4 minute tape of everything, and it was a tape. Now you can make an MP3, and then you'll contact people once you have your demo, agents, and don't send it until they say yes, they're interested, because that'll really piss them off. Because it's like, I didn't ask you for this, and I gotta wait for this to download. So, you contact agents and people and get it out there, and that's it.
So to work pretty voice, you call your agent, you say, hey, I got a demo I'd like to send you, and you just say, hey, I've also got a phone call from Spielberg.
You're right, yeah.
Here, I'll play you the voicemail. And then, yeah.
One of the other things, you see videos of a lot of voice actors. I always like the ones that really get into it. I'm curious, are you kind of more of a laid back when you're doing this, or are you kind of up there when you're doing the gremlins, getting really into it?
So I do a lot of commercials, like you guys probably heard, Wild Turkey. So So, you know, real Kentucky bourbon. Nothing else comes close. Give them the bird. So that's a laid back thing. But when I'm doing the Gremlins, actually, first I had to take my shoes and socks off. I was like, I got it, because they're barefoot.
Yeah.
Made me feel more like a gremlin, and then I kind of crouch down and get kind of like I'm a gremlin. All into it, you know. I become it for a while. Yeah, so it depends on the character. But yeah, certainly I become whatever I'm doing. They feel it. You know, when you're doing the video games, when we're punching and doing all the fight stuff, emotes is what they call it. You do it. And I'm being directed over Skype, and they can't see me, they're only hearing. And sometimes the director will say, punch the air. And I'm like, I'm punching the air. And she'll say, punch it harder. And I'm like, you know. So yeah, you do it, because they feel that.
Do you have a preferred style? Because it seems like to get to act that out would be a lot of fun, because you get to kind of really get engaged with it. Do you enjoy that more? Do you kind of like the laid back version, or is it kind of?
I like it all. I like it all. Yeah. And you know, and you prepare before a session, so at Halloween I do a lot of Halloween, so that starts in August and September. I start doing commercials for all the haunts. I do about 25 of the haunts in America, and big Chicago, New York, LA, and then other smaller towns. So I'm in character all day, and I'm a ghost, or I'm a vampire, or I'm, you know, Dark Hour Haunted House.
Then you walk outside the summertime.
Yes, you know, and it feels kind of weird. Really, when I've got, maybe I got 5 commercials to do one day, and so I start warming up a couple hours before, becoming this ghost, and I'm a ghost most of the day. When I get all done, I kind of got to leave him in the booth. He'll come out with me sometimes, and I'll realize I'll be saying something, I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm still talking like this, you know. But yeah, it just keeps happening, and you're like, stop.
I would like the caramel macchiato.
Yes. So yeah, you gotta stop yourself.
That's awesome. Well, if anybody else has a question, you guys can ask. If not, I don't want to keep you up here too long. I know you're busy. I've got these very stoic individuals behind me.
Empire, yeah, I'm surprised Lord Vader has allowed them to stand up here this morning.
I know, right?
Hello.
Such a slave driver.
Right. I've been in Ewok. I played Teak in the thing that they just started running on the Disney Channel. We did it back in '85. They brought me back for that, actually. I forgot about that. I did go back and do that. And I did it back in that studio. I apologize.
Oh, wow.
I forget these things. But I did Teak in the Ewoks Battle for Endor. The TV special. Yeah. And they just put it on the Disney Channel.
Yeah.
And so I was that Ewok, and I was a lot of other Ewok voices. And there's giants in it called Marauders, and I did the big Marauders too. So I did from the little furry guys to the big Marauders on that. But I love the Ewoks.
Is that so? The words for Ewoks, is that written on a script, or
yes,
is that, okay?
It is, and there is Ewokese.
So there you go. It's not like
Yum yum chop yum yum. It means celebrate.
Yeah.
Right? It's celebrate.
So not only does he do voices in English, he does voices in other languages.
In other languages.
Yes. Yeah. Bilingual.
Yes.
English, Ewok. That's awesome.
I see a question.
Oh, is there a question?
There's a question over here. Yeah.
Here, you can come up here and. There we go.
Have you enjoyed your stay in Hannibal? And if you have, what is your favorite part? What's the most memorable?
I love Hannibal. I'm a Missouri boy. This makes me. Yeah, I love Hannibal. It brings back my.
What?
it just moves me because it brings back my childhood.
Oh.
Yeah. I love Mark Twain. I'm sorry.
No, it's.
I'm gonna be a little baby now.
No, you're fine.
I love Mark Twain. I love Hannibal. I love the Mississippi River. I learned how to ski on that river. I dodging logs. And it's a great town. Well, the people make a town, right? And so you guys are great people.
Yes.
And there's not a lot of towns like this left in the world
No.
at all. And I got to go to the cave, and that was really fun. I felt a lot of spirits in that cave. They're there. And today I got the guy that owns the cave now.
Yeah.
Came over this morning and invited me to come and sign in the cave.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, I got to figure out how I can get over there and do this. But
Yeah.
I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that. And so I love it. And I love Twain. I love his quotes. So I do want to say, life is short. You know, this was Twain said this. Life is short. Forgive quickly. Kiss slowly. All right? Laugh uncontrollably. And never ever regret the things that make you smile. That's Twain. I think that's the heart of Twain. So yeah, I love it. What a great question. Thank you.
That's awesome. Yeah, thank you so much for that question. I didn't think things would get emotional. See,
I didn't
I'm getting
either.
off a
I
class.
didn't either.
Vader's crying behind the mask. It's getting.
Oh, good Lord Vader. Thank you. I like that.
All right, well, if all you guys are good, I think we're good up here. Mark, is there anything else that you want? I mean,
I just say really.
Twain's a big note to end on. So
I can't talk to him.
Yeah, right?
That does it. I'll just say, may the force be with you all. And thanks for being here.
Guys.
And thanks to the people that put this on.
Yeah.
Deb.
Yeah.
What a great job, and all the volunteers, and all that it takes to do something like this. And thanks to the town for having us and being so welcoming. Thank you. That's all. Just thanks.
Yeah. Not a lot of towns do things like this, and to have something like this, like, you know, for people that can't, I can't spend a weekend in Kansas City or whatever. Like, to be able to come here and like share things that you like with other people that like the things that you like, it's awesome.
Are you gonna cry?
No. Maybe later.
Okay.
In my car.
Good.
But anyway, guys, one more big round of applause.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. As we're winding down, as our beautiful assistant Shawn is letting you know. But yeah, that'll be fun. Maybe if we talk nice, maybe we can get our next guest to stay and stick around for a while. I mean, what battle wouldn't be a battle without a heavyweight, right? So for our next guest, we have the amazing animator. Don't shake your head. No. Guys, Tom Cook.
Well, thanks very much, guys.
Our pleasure.
So I guess you want to start with just some quick questions or something, and then I can go into my presentation.
Yeah, I don't know what to ask. See, this is the part where I get nervous and shaky because, I'm kind of geeking out.
Well, what I'll do is I have a presentation that takes you right through my childhood as a young cowboy, and then I tell you how I got in the business, and then basically how we did a cartoon in the good old days. So Yeah, I'll give you guys a break. And
I'm okay. Yeah, I'm
Okay.
okay if you're. Yeah, please. I feel like I'm just glad that we got the primo seating. I think that's
Well, this is me. I was about 4 years old, and my Saturday mornings consisted of cowboys. It was Lone Ranger, Roy Rogers, Hopalong Cassidy, and that type. And of course, I went full into it, and that's my little sister. So I know this is 1954 because that's when she was born. And you can see that really high-tech telephone. You have the dial. And I'm standing on her diaper pail. So, I mean, that's really comfortable. So let's, oh, shoot, wouldn't you know? First thing, and I already goof up. All right, so anyway, about 1960, 61, comic book company called Marvel Comics came out. And they had a character named Spider-Man. And that's what kind of made me want to draw. I was about 8 years old and loved Steve Ditko's artwork. And so I started just copying what he did, on a piece of paper, holding the comic book up. And so this is what really inspired me to even want to get into drawing comics. This is the first comic I ever had. I had a next door neighbor that we camped in the backyard, camped in our tent and read comic books by flashlight. And he pulls out this Spider-Man #4, and I had never seen one before, so I traded him everything I had for this one comic. And the other character in this whole story is Jack Kirby. Now, this is one of the Marvel's greatest artists. If anybody has heard of a character named Captain America, or Iron Man, or Hulk, or Fantastic Four, or Thor, or Silver Surfer, or Black Panther, or I could go on forever because he created most of the characters that Stan Lee wrote about. And so he was another reason why I really wanted to get to draw. And he comes up a little bit later in this panel, and we'll get there when we get there. But the other guy, this is Steve Ditko. This is the guy that did Spider-Man, and he was very reclusive, so it was really hard to ever meet him. But when I was in New York for a ComiCon, I went down to his office, and when he came out the elevator, I just introduced myself to him, and basically just thanked him for inspiring me to have this great career. And he was very nice. I was afraid he might shoot me, but he was actually really nice to me. This is Stan Lee. Now, this is back in about 1990, and he visited Seattle, and I was living in Seattle at the time. And at this point, it was 5 free autographs and a photo with Stan for free. So nowadays, back when he was doing this at the Comic-Cons, this would be about $500, $600 worth. So, and of course, the real reason I put this slide into the show is just to show everybody that at one point I used to have brown hair. Yeah. So in fact, that's the first thing he said when I showed him this photo. He said, "Hey, you had brown hair." And then he looked again and he goes, "Hey, I had hair." So Stan was a really great guy. I got to know him a little bit, and he was super fun to be with. Now, as far as my childhood, this is the very first Saturday morning cartoon that was ever made. It was called Crusader Rabbit. And it was kind of like Rocky and Bullwinkle, if anybody knows what that is. But this was the first time, and it was very limited animation, but it was the first attempt at doing a cartoon specifically for Saturday mornings. Then there was also something called Beanie and Cecil, and this was created by the character that, his name is Bob Clampett. He was a director of Warner Brothers. He also created a character named Bugs Bunny. So he was very popular and great director, and this was a great show when I was a kid. Another thing was called King Leonardo, Tooter the Turtle, Courageous Cat and Minnie Mouse. This is the guy who created Batman, created this cartoon. And it was just like Batman and Robin, but instead it was a cat and a mouse. Then the first Hanna-Barbera cartoon, after they stopped doing Tom and Jerry's for the theater, was called Rough and Ready Show. And this was in 1957, so I was only 5 years old. And this is what really started cartoons for television, was when Hanna-Barbera started doing this show. Now, what ended up happening is this show was pretty popular, but then they came up with another character that had the same exact voice as the dog that's sitting on the scooter here. And that character's name was Huckleberry Hound. So I think the reason you don't see much about Rough and Ready is because Huckleberry Hound's voice was so recognizable that it was really difficult for them to make a difference between the two, so they never really showed Rough and Ready. The other show was Underdog, another great show I loved. There's Rocky and Bullwinkle. Then so now I've grown up, I'm in high school, and I get my first real job. And my first real job was working on an assembly line, welding cars together. Horrible job, but it paid really well, and that's what I liked about it. The problem was, it was United Auto Workers Union, and they started demanding more and more money. So what happens is they closed this down, moved it to Canada, so I was out of a job. So who cares if I was going to get more money if they're going to end up closing the plant down? So now I'm in a spot where I've got this nice apartment that I can afford, and suddenly I have no job. Well, luckily my mother knew somebody that worked as a bus driver in Los Angeles. So I ended up getting a job as a bus driver. And I did this for about 4 or 5 years. And one day, I went out to the mail and I got my all this junk mail, and I normally just throw it in the trash can. This one day, for some reason, I put it on my kitchen table, and I sat down to eat my sandwich that I made, and there was a little pamphlet. There was a college extension course class, brochure to tell you what shows they were going to have or what classes they were going to have during the summertime. So I took the class because it was a comic book class, and I wanted to meet the teacher, who was a comic book artist named Don Rico. So I took the class, and first day he told us to bring our portfolios in. So it was all my superhero work that I had done on my own. And after the class, he called me up to the front and said, I want to let you know that I work at Hanna-Barbera as a storyboard artist. And we're doing a show called Challenge of the Super Friends, and we need people to draw superheroes. Would you be interested if I recommended you to a class that they taught at Hanna-Barbera in basic animation? And I'm like, hey, yeah. So of course I jumped at that chance. And this is the Hanna-Barbera building. And the ironic part is that this was my bus route. I went right past this studio every day for the 5 years, wanting at some point to be able to go in and tour the place and see where all of my cartoons were created. Well, I got to the class, and for 3 weeks, I was learning how to do an in-between, and they decided to hire 4 people from the class out of about the 40 of us that were taking the class, and I was one of the 4 that got hired. Well, I didn't know what I was doing yet. I mean, I'd only taken the class for 3 weeks, so I really was confused as to what my whole job would be. So I told the directors this, and they said, don't worry about it. You're going to be fine. You're going to work with another animator. You'll be his assistant, and that's how you'll learn how to do this. And this is, now I'm just going to take you through kind of how, this is called a storyboard. And this is Bill Hanna and Joe Barbera, and they would take all of the directors and kind of direct the show and tell the directors what they wanted to see in every scene. So every scene is broken down into a panel for what, if it's going to be a close-up or a long shot or whatever. It gives them an idea of what the story's going to be. Now this is my first day at Hanna-Barbera, and as you can see, I look pretty scared. And I can remember somebody saying, I want to take a picture, and I'm like, okay. And the guy behind me is Pete Gulliver. He was one of the other 4 that they hired at that time. But I mean, this was a dream that I couldn't even dream, come true. This is what the building looked a little bit later. This was maybe in the 80s, where they put the different characters up on the wall. So when you drove by, now you knew you were driving by an animation studio. Then when I got the job in '78, one of the first shows I worked on was the new Fred and Barney show. And I actually have on my phone the very first drawing I ever did of Fred Flintstone. And so it was funny because I got hired to work on Super Friends, and then the first thing I do was Fred. But then, of course, Super Friends did that. Something called Scooby-Doo. So I worked on this show, Scooby Goes to Hollywood, where in this movie he dresses up like a character that's kind of like Fonzie from Happy Days. And this is him. And this is actually one of my drawings from that episode. And, Happy Days was really popular at this time, so there was a whole sequence about him. Then we also did a thing called Godzilla. And there's little Godzuki, his little comedy relief. Captain Caveman, and this was voiced by the guy that voiced Bugs Bunny, Mel Blanc. A million voices for that man. And then I worked on something called the Smurfs, and the Smurfs were difficult to do because see how many Smurfs are in this scene? If they all moved, we had to animate, so it was like drawing, 10 times the drawings, just working with each of these characters. So luckily they were easy to draw, so we could do it quickly, but it still was one of those nightmare shows because there were so many characters to draw. Something called The Thing, and this wasn't really from Fantastic Four, but the kid found a ring that would turn him into the Thing. Something called The New Snooze Show, and this was Little Abner had a cartoon, and this was one of the characters from Little Abner comic strip. Then I also got to work on a Hanna-Barbera ride in Florida, Universal Studios in Florida. And I had never seen my work until I found it on YouTube. So I took a screen catcher from YouTube, and that's my Elroy from that. They basically are showing you how they draw Elroy, and then Elroy comes to life off the page and flies around, and then Dick Dastardly kidnaps him. And then you go on this long ride to try to save him. I apologize for the coughing. I've got a pretty bad cold. Then in 1980, I moved over to Ruby Spears, and that's where I worked on Plastic Man. And this woman, Penny, in the future, in the very near future, is going to be the voice of She-Ra. And I worked on Heathcliff the Cat, Thundar the Barbarian. Now this is where Jack Kirby comes in. Jack Kirby created this show along with Steve Gerber, the guy that created Howard the Duck. So I was walking down the hallway, and here comes Jack Kirby the other way. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's Jack Kirby. So I went up and introduced myself to him, and he was such a nice guy. And he gave me his address and phone number and said, come on over to the house, and I'll show you around my studio. So, I mean, dream come true. But this was actually a really, really good TV series. And if anybody's seen it, I always say this would be your favorite show if you were a young boy back then. Now, in 1981, we went on strike. Sound familiar? We went on strike for more money. So, instead of giving us more money, Ruby Spears and Hanna-Barbera promptly closed their doors and moved all their work over to Japan and Korea. So, once again, I lose my job because of a union. So I'm not real fond of unions. I was doing really good, making really good money, and their demands just were so high that it was hard for the companies to make money paying us that much. So they decided to send the work overseas. So lucky for me, I had heard that Filmation Studios, the head of the studio, Lou Scheimer, had promised he would never send work overseas. So once I caught wind of what was going on, I called up Filmation and got a job over there. And this is Norm Prescott, Hal Sutherland, and Lou Scheimer. And Lou was the head of the studio, and thankfully for him, I only would have had 3 or 4 years of work, and that would have been it. I would have been out of the business. But with him, he kept us going for another 9 or 10 years. Super nice man, and really had a good feel for the American workers and made sure that we stayed busy. This is the old Filmation Studios. This is in a town called Reseda, California. And we eventually had to move into a bigger building because now we were the only animation studio in LA. So everybody came here to work. And once we got going on He-Man, we never got laid off again. I mean, it was a solid job for the rest of my career. And this is the building a little bit later. The logo has changed up at the top, if you notice. That's the He-Man logo. And over there, we worked on Flash Gordon, Tarzan, Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids. Not real popular for some reason right now. Shazam and something called Hero High, which is a high school for all the superheroes kids. Black Star, and this is where I finally became an animator. I was an assistant animator all the way for the first 3 years. And I had been doing my own animation, showing the directors, and they finally said, okay, you're ready to be an animator on your own. So this was the first show I got to work on that. And this was like the precursor to He-Man. Then He-Man. Now the thing about He-Man was, all the other TV shows I'd worked on had been on ABC, CBS, and NBC. And the networks started sticking their noses in and saying, no, you can't do this show because it's too violent, or you got to change this character. And, you know, this is our show. We should be able to do it as we want. Well, with He-Man, this was going to be syndicated. So we did the whole series, and then we shopped it around to all the cities in the United States. So you had your Channel 13s and your Channel 9s and all the kind of off channels. They purchased this, and this was shown, instead of just Saturday morning, this was on Monday through Friday, usually around 3:30 or so in the afternoon. So now the kids were racing home from school to see this show, and you could see it 5 times a week. So it really took off. And from then on, every show we did was all done with syndication, and we didn't have to deal with the networks any longer. Then, of course, came She-Ra. And this was groundbreaking for the women, because this is the first show that a woman had her own show. There was Wonder Woman in Super Friends, but she was still in with other cast of characters. And I have a lot of people come up to me talking about how this really changed their life as a kid. A couple of stars. I don't know if anybody knows who Summer Glau is. She was in Firefly. During her panel, they asked her what was her favorite thing growing up as a kid, and she said She-Ra. And last week I was in Greenville, South Carolina, and I was there with a girl that was in The Mandalorian. Her name's Emily Swallow. Same thing. She said that was one of her favorite shows. She actually came over to get my autograph because she loved She-Ra so much. And even Meghan Markle, in that interview she did with Oprah, mentioned the Princess of Power. So it was pretty dynamic for young girls at the time. Now, we go to this show called Ghostbusters. We did a Filmation's Ghostbusters. This was in '74. We did a live action version of Ghostbusters. This is before the movie. We owned the rights to the name Ghostbusters. And these guys were in a TV show called F Troop back in the 60s. And so they owned the Ghostbuster franchise and would do all the ghost busting. Well, they eventually gave this over to their kids who were now cartoons. And at the same time, Dan Aykroyd was doing this movie and they wanted to name it Ghostbusters. So they paid us $500,000 to be able to use the name Ghostbusters. But it confused everybody, so they thought we were ripping off the name Ghostbusters from them. And, you know, they didn't rip it off from us, they paid for the rights to use it. So it was really an amicable decision. This is the old Filmation Studios. My office was down at the end here. And this is moving day. We're finally going to move into a bigger building because we had to have about 4 or 5 different buildings in that area to hold everybody. And so we moved into this nice new building about 3 miles away. And this held everybody. It was like 5 or 6 stories tall. And just a beautiful building, and really, really great that we all could work in the same building again. This is me at that building. Now, the only problem is we no longer had our own room. We were in a big cubicle. So there was an area like this that was just broken up into cubicles. So it made it a little bit more difficult because we couldn't play music loud like we could in our own room. And being the fan of John Fogerty, as we can see here, I like the Creedence Clearwater quite a bit. And this is the animation desk I was working at on He-Man, and I actually purchased this. When the company went out of business, I purchased this, and it's in my studio at home. Then we also worked on Brave Star, And then we were working on a show called Bravo, which was a spin-off from Bravestar, when Westinghouse sold the company to another company, and they promptly closed the studio on us. So now we're stuck again with no job. This is 1989. And so I got to do freelance work, and this kept me busy, and I got to work on the Paula Abdul Opposites Attract video with MC Scat Cat. And I had never animated anything to a beat before, so it was really interesting to learn how they mark the beat so that you could make sure that they move on the right frames. Also did some commercials with the 7-Up spot, if anybody remembers these from back in the 80s, early 90s. I did a Garfield special called Babes and Bullets, where it's like a film noir 1940s detective, and he plays a character named Sam Spade. Then I moved over to the Bear Animation Company and got to work on This is Dale Bear. He just passed away like a month ago. Super guy, one of the great animators from Disney, and he broke away and started his own animation studio. And one of the nicest bosses I've ever worked for, and just an amazing animator. And we got to work on all the Disney characters because he had association with Disney, and they trusted him so well to handle the characters good. So we had to work on Goofy, the hippos from Fantasia. And this was all done kind of like Roger Rabbit at the time. We were working on Roger Rabbit as well. And so it was all live action with the animation. This is one of my drawings from that commercial where they were fighting over the ice cream cone, and it spills on the seat, and of course it's Scotch guarded, so it's safe. And I also got to work on Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, which is one of my all-time favorite movies. And here's The Tummy Trouble. This is where we worked on Roger Rabbit. Prince and the Pauper, which until today I had forgotten who wrote Prince and the Pauper. Mark Twain. I'd completely forgotten that. And I saw it today over when we went to the cave, and they had a picture of Prince and the Pauper. And I said, oh my gosh, that's right, he did this. So there's my Mark Twain connection, you know. And plus I got to work on Mickey Mouse, which, you know, is an animator's dream, being one of the very first animated characters ever. And then I worked on something called Rover Dangerfield. This was Rodney Dangerfield as a dog. And a very, very clever little cartoon. And these were some of the scenes I did from that. And there's a turkey that, the turkey dies, and Rover kind of grabs it and tries to make it talk, and goes, trying to pretend he's alive. Worked on We're Back, a dinosaur story. Thumbelina. Then I became an animation director. So, and this was about the early 90s. And I directed episodes of Duckman, King of the Hill. If anybody's seen the episode where Bobby gets caught smoking, I did that episode. Extreme Ghostbusters, and this had one of the characters was in a wheelchair, so it was one of the first, handicap in a cartoon that was a star of the show. Something called Extreme Dinosaurs, Savage Dragon, and I did a bunch of specials for HBO, which were different takes on the old fairy tales, like Pinocchio was a little black puppet, voiced by Will Smith. Goldilocks was it was all reggae music, and she had dreadlocks, so it was all done in Jamaican dialect. And of course, that's all really great and a lot of fun, but of course, the best part of the entire show is the credits. And you can see I'm up there, right there, and a couple of these guys are my real good friends, who are still friends from the good old days. And the thing about Lou Scheimer, too, is instead of rolling the credits really fast with our names about this big, he put it nice and big and held it. And there would be two sets of animators, because he could have made us all really small and fit us all on the same page. But he said, you guys are the reason that this is a successful studio, so we want to give you the credit. So that was really great of him. Nowadays, I live in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. I play drums on my church worship team. And I learned to play the drums because I had a crush on a girl back in junior high, and the Beatles came out, and she liked Ringo. So what better way to win her heart than to become a drummer? It didn't work, but I'm a good drummer. Anyway, So if there's any questions anybody has, just raise your hand and scream it at me. Or if you want to go down with the mic. Or...
I mean, I could just, like, have it up here. If anybody does have any questions.
And if not, no big deal.
No. Yeah, it's cool. No pressure, guys, promise.
This happens every time.
I just want to say that I was like, I was kind of nervous, and then I saw MC Scat Cat, and that's when I grabbed Shawn's arm. I was like, oh my God, it's MC Scat Cat. He's Drew MC Scat Cat. I was very excited. But Tom, thank you so much.
No, it's great. And of course, coming to these cons is a way to keep me going. I mean, I'm retired now, but to come out and meet the fans, and the fans are so great. I mean, it's interesting because I was such a fan as a little kid that I wish we had Comic-Cons when I was a little kid, because I would have loved to have met some of these people. Now, luckily, I met a lot of them. Like I met Mel Blanc because I worked there.
Yeah.
But so I understand what it's like to want to meet your hero. It's just weird being that hero. It's really freaky.
Never thought you'd be on that side of the table.
The one thing people come up, I hear all the time, is they go, "You drew my childhood."
Yeah.
And I go, "Well, this was my adulthood." So, but anyway, I'm in the back corner here. So if anybody has any, I've got drawings for sale, I've got prints for sale, I can autograph pops, whatever you have. It'd be my honor to do it. And of course, I was very grateful to Deb here for coming up with this con and inviting me to the show. And it's going to be great. I hope you guys are enjoying this show as much as I am, and hopefully tomorrow's going to be massive. But thanks anyway so much for listening to me drone on and on. But it's a great pleasure to be here, so thank you very much.
I loved every second.
MC fucking Scat Cat, Shawn.
Oh, there it was, Richard. He, Tom Cook, he kind of went through a lot of his history of how he got into it, showed a lot of cool stuff on the things he's done. Like we said, Mark Dodson. We got to, you kind of hear it mentioned, but we got to do Mark Dodson's panel in front of the 501st.
Yeah. I felt so bad. I felt a little bad about that, kind of. Just because, like, we're sitting there and we're talking with Mark, and then we have this row of people behind us, and they were just, and like, hats off to those guys, because they stood there and they were, they were listening, and they were, they were interested, but they stood there, full costume, under lights, the entire time, and I didn't hear one guy being like, could these motherfuckers shut the fuck up so I could get off this goddamn stage?
I've had to pee for half an hour.
I felt like we should wrap this up. Like, these guys need a break. And so as soon as it was over, like, I walked up to those guys and I was like, guys, thank you so much. I was like, I felt so bad because you guys were standing there the whole time. I was like, at least I had a stool to sit on.
And one of them's like, well, you could have offered it up. You're like, oh God, no.
I'm the talent. You don't understand.
But as we said at the beginning of the episode, Richard, we wanted to announce our winner of our raffle. And Richard, we put this into a random number generator. And I don't know how random it is, but it came up with our favorite number 37.
In a row?
In a row. And that winner by email, I won't give out his whole email, but it is Tater Rock. So, Tater, we're going to be sending you an email to let you know, hey, that you won, and try to set up some time to get you your gift package raffle winning stuff. So, thanks again to everybody who signed up. You should have emails that have been sent to you. Subscribe, check us out, email us back to let us know what we could do better. And we thank you guys, everybody who stopped by and said hi to us at the ComiCon. And with that, Richard, I will tee it up for some Richard's closing thoughts.
So this was day 2. This was the last day. I felt this day was actually, it was kind of bittersweet in a way, because we got to, we were there the whole day. We got to meet so many amazing people. I mean, the panelists were great, and the people that we talked to were great. But just the people that just walked up just to say like, "Hey, what is this?" and like, "What are you guys doing?" Like, it was getting to meet people and talk to people, and that was a really, really awesome thing. And I guess I'm saying it's bittersweet because, that first day you're kind of like working out the kinks of it and, trying to like get back in the groove of it, of, trying, because, we're sitting at a table and obviously like, like we're there and like we have a purpose, like we're trying to like, pimp our show and, and stuff like that. And I mean, obviously that goes on, but, you feel a little like dodgy, not dodgy, but just kind of not 100% when it comes to talking to people, especially after, it being so long since you're in a setting where you talk to people. And so day one, you kind of like work the kinks out, like you get the oils going. So by day two, you're like, okay, I remember how to do this now. And then you kind of go and then it's over.
Yeah.
And then you're like, man, I felt like I wasted day one by just trying to get in the groove of it. So day two was super, super fun. But honestly, it made me feel like I wasted effort on day one.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair.
And I was slightly hungover and pretty tired. But it was a great time.
Yeah, to be fair,
time.
This was our first like or basically our first con where we had a table and stuff. And I want to give a big thank you to your wife and your kiddos because I think your wife kind of showed us because like we had like maybe 2 people sign up for emails because you and I were very much like, hey, never mind, they look busy.
They look busy. Do you want? Oh no, never mind. Just don't look at me. Yeah. Don't talk to me.
You're like,
sorry.
Do you listen to podcasts? And they're like, what? Like, oh, never mind. But your wife was just like clockwork, like, hey, get over here, you. And people were like, who, me? Like, yes, you, Batman, get over here. She made Batman cry, Richard.
Yeah.
But I want to thank those guys because they helped us out a ton. But yeah, it was a great time. I think we've learned a lot and definitely excited to hopefully get back next year. But with that note, I will do a little bit of housekeeping. So visit our website, we're at languageofbros.com. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at languageofbro. Email us at bros@languageofbros.com. And we'd like to thank our patrons as always, Wendy and Aaron.
And you will always win the raffle of our hearts.
Yes. You guys are always 1 and 1 because it's not 1 and 2. It's 1 and 1.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
I like you guys almost as much as I like MC Scat.
All right. Well, is there anything else before I close her out?
The guests were great. The con was great. And you're great.
Oh, you're great too, man. That was a lot of fun. I think we did a good job once we kind of got in the swing of things. But
agreed.
But all right. Well, if there's nothing else, that's all the Bromance we have for this show. I'm Shawn.
And I'm Richard.
And remember, don't be a why. Be a why not. It was so much fun.
My liver still hurts.